Welcome to Uxbridge Beat, the podcast where we feature the who's who of Uxbridge, Ontario. My name is Scott Campsell.
And I am Jennifer Neville-Campsell, and today we speak with Scott Rutledge, owner of Uxbridge's own Rutledge Jewellers. Rutledge Jewellers sells jewelry, but they are a part of many of our life's journeys here in Uxbridge. Engagements, anniversaries, birthdays, all sorts of celebrations are punctuated by jewelry purchases.
It is the connections, relationships, and attention to detail that makes Rutledge Jewellers second to none. Scott truly cares about the pieces that he sells, both new and vintage, and that care is even more obvious when it comes to his clients.
So whether you're looking for an engagement ring, a stylish watch, or a cute pen or a charm, Scott is your one-stop shop for all things sparkly and beautiful.
All things sparkly and beautiful. This episode's going to cost me a fortune.
Welcome to Uxbridge Beat. We're so glad you're joining us today, Scott. Tell us a little bit about you and the history of Rutledge Jewellers.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me. This is new for me. So if I make any mistake, please don't shoot me. Rutledge Jewellers is 37 years young, and it was started in the back of the current location that we're now in, and on 3 Church Street. And over the years, we were able to graduate to purchase the building and move out front to which is our current addresses at 82 Brock Street. And we took over the back, and now we've taken over the apartments, and now we've got manufacturing and goldsmithing all under one roof. So it's kind of nice to have that. We've been around for 38 years, I guess, this year.
And do you have a history of jewelry making or education previous to that? Why did you open the store?
Well, I started in the business years ago in Markham with Mr. Lloyd Barthow Jewellers, when they had the store there. And it was a wonderful experience. I have nothing but fine memories and great respect for the man. And his son opened a store in Stouffville, David. And he's an acquaintance of ours still to this day, and we're members of the same social club. It's quite an honor to have that in the industry that we've gone back so far. So I started when I was 13. My mom passed away, and my dad was not lost, but through the church and through one of the ministers in Markham, they put me on to Barthow Jewellers to help and work in the back room. It kept me clear and clean and out of problems, because I started when I was technically in grade 8. And then I went all through high school and right up until I was 27. I ultimately had a chance to try to do something different, and it was still in the jewelry business and doing appraisals. And then I had a chance to do my own business at about 28 with Case Bassmeyer in Uxbridge. Years ago, I looked to buy Lloyd Andrews' business when it was still here, and I wanted to move up to this area, but I didn't have the business savvy or understanding then to do it, and I couldn't really do it by myself at that time. So I started the business, as I say, 37 years ago, and it was pretty cool. I've enjoyed every minute of it.
When you said you worked in the back, what kind of stuff did you do in the back?
When I started with Barthos, well, my job was to clean the windows, shovel the snow, go to the post office, and I started to learn bench work. So I started to clean jewelry. I started to engrave. I really enjoyed engraving. And I started to run that department for that store. And we had a brisk department in there. It was a good business. And then I learned to work on the bench, doing small repairs. And years ago, charm bracelets were the big things. And the ladies would come in with 12 charms, and you'd have to solder them all on. So, and Mr. Barthow was very particular, and he wanted it done in a certain way. So we had to solder it. So I had to learn, and I had many, many hours of learning the wrong way to learn the right way. But once you get it, it's not something you don't lose.
So how many hours a week are you looking at? Like, was that a part-time thing?
Oh, I used to do 34 hours a week and go to high school and grade 8, which was in Markham District High at the time. And I ultimately ended up doing all that time working. And I would work after dinner when the store closed with Mr. Barthow at night if we had projects to do, or he was showing me something new. So I was learning, and I didn't even know I was learning, which was probably one of the best ways for me.
So now you're the proprietor of your own business.
Yes.
Do you think it was an interest that you had, and that's why it was giving you that drive, or was it something that sort of unfolded?
It sort of unfolded. I had a dream that I would maybe have my own business, but I really didn't know what that meant. And all the extras that it means. And that's the part I don't really love, the extras, because it takes you away from the fundamental part of your business and the advertising. And now social media is such a big deal and I know nothing about it. So I have to pay people that do know. And I'm very fortunate. I have some great people around me.
What's interesting about that is that everybody we've interviewed from town who's also had a small business has said the exact same thing, that they just want to focus on the business aspect of it and they don't want to do all the other stuff like the bookkeeping or the social media or...
At one time, I think I did the bookkeeping and it was very short time. It was such a mess and everything was redone. I think I lasted about a month and a bit at it. And it was advised to me by my accountant. He says, how about I take it over? And then, or how about I find somebody for 2 days a week or something like that? Because it was a disaster.
So what's your strength?
My strength now is the knowledge that I've gained and the experience over time and the appreciation of understanding what we've got and what we can do. So I think that's my strength.
How do you learn about things like gems and diamonds?
Well, I went to school. I went to school in California, the same school my son went to 30 some odd years later, Gemological Institute of America. And once again, I was learning, but I didn't really know that I was learning. I always had a fascination in diamonds and I have an appreciation for colored stones. And the older I get, the more I like colored stones, but I used to always and still do love diamonds. And that has taken a little bit of a change with the advent of the lab grown diamonds.
Okay, talk to us about that. I know a little bit about it, but really not very much at all.
Well, I think during COVID, just before COVID, I had a diamond broker come to me and say, Scott, what do you think about these lab grown diamonds? I said, oh, I'm not going to do it ever. Like, no way. They're not real. They're this or that. Well, he spoke to me. He told me the story and broke it all down. And he says, unfortunately, it's not your choice. I said, what do you mean it's not my choice? Understand that a lab grown diamond is the choice of the consumer. If they decide to go to it, are you going to miss that market? And I went, well, I don't want to. Well, because they may not buy mined stones. They may prefer to go to lab grown for a lot of sound reasons. So lab grown came on the market probably about 10 years ago. Then it has evolved slowly to where it's growing at about 350% a year right now.
So what's a lab grown diamond?
Okay, so it's the very same thing as a diamond, but it takes 6 to 8 weeks to make. There's 2 processes that it's done by, and they can control the quality, the color, the cut, and also the carat weight. So by doing it in the lab process, they grow the diamond. So it's still formed in an octahedron, and then the stone is still cut from that. It's more environmentally friendly because they're not digging strip mines and there's not the misuse of young people and perhaps in mining. So a lot of the under 40 crowd that's more savvy about this asks for it. So we had no choice. We would sell between 10 and 12 1-carat stones, maybe 3, 4, or 5 years ago. Well, we'll sell that in a month now in lab grown because they're so much more reasonable in price. A lab grown diamond, 1 carat can go from $2,000 to $3,500. And a mine diamond starts at $8,000 or $9,000, and that's not for a very good one. So you can start to see the people like the lab grown for a lot of reasons.
So now that you're doing both, do you still have that preference towards the mine diamond as opposed to the lab grown? Or have you changed your mind on that?
Everybody wants to say they're still a purist. And I would love to say I was mined. And I fought it for a while, but I had to come around to it because I listened to the people. And to be good in retail, one of the primary things is you have to be a good listener. And that's one of the things that I was taught early. And when I ask them, how did they hear about it? They generally say, well, it's less money. That's their first, or it's environmentally friendly. And so I would say that the younger people are causing me to rethink my direction. And I find it more acceptable to go to lab, I guess, because it makes them more affordable for a broader part of the community. You know, a young man comes in and he's got so much ahead of him. or a young girl comes in and she wants to buy that. There's so much ahead. Putting a $10,000 or $15,000 expense is not possible because they want to buy a house. They've got cars, they've got education.
So essentially they could get a bigger stone for a budget that would be of a moderate stone otherwise if it was mine cut.
That's right.
So it's far more impressive for somebody to present a very large stone and not have to be out 40, 50 grand for it.
Or $10,000.
Right.
And they can get into it for $2,500, which is approximately 25% of that total. And what the young girls of today like, they love the size, they love the flash, they love the sparkle. That hasn't changed for the last 30 years. It's just the size of the budgets have changed because not everybody can spend $10,000, $12,000. Most of the budgets that are popular are $5,000 to $10,000 that people spend on engagement rings.
Now you have an estate jewelry aspect of the business. Have you always had that?
We started it about, no, in answer to your question, we started about 15 years ago. And like so many big things, they started by a complete and total fluke. We had a very good customer that lost his wife, and she had bought probably 10 to 12 pieces of jewelry from us, and beautiful pieces. And I must admit, they were excellent. Well, he came in very heavy hearted one day and he asked, what am I going to do with these pieces, Scott? I have nobody to leave them to, and they're beautiful and there's some money there. And I said, well, I can't help you. I didn't really want to sell used, but I didn't understand the implications of that. And what it meant was you were selling a previously loved piece that it was no fault of its own that the person, for whatever reason, no longer required that piece. So he walked to the door and he was very emotional. And he came back and he said, Scott, I thought you'd be open to this. He says, I'm not asking for all the money back. He says, I'm just asking for a vehicle in which to possibly get rid of them or possibly let somebody else enjoy them again. I think that was his wording. So I rethought about it and we put the 12 rings in a tray. Well, they got noticed. And within, I'm going to say 2 months, they were all gone. And not gone at a full retail, but a lower retail. And we made a portion of a commission on it. Well, that has evolved. And now we probably have 800 or 900 pieces in our vintage department, partially because I don't like to scrap or melt down. I don't think there's a purpose in that. If it's totally worn out, I get it. But if it's something that we can repurpose, why not? There's too much of the throwaway in this society. And most of the customers that enjoy vintage like it for these reasons. They don't want to see it thrown by the wayside. They love the quality and the workmanship that are in these pieces. Plus, the price doesn't hurt either. You can get into a 1-carat diamond in mined for $45,000 to $5,000. Remember, that same stone on the other side might be $10,000 to $12,000. So it's just a difference of orientation and how you look at it. Vintage is a lot of fun, and you can help out families that, for whatever reason, no longer need those pieces.
What's the oldest or the most interesting piece that's come through the doors that you can think of?
There's been a lot. We had royal jewels that were from Europe, and it was owned by a family in Uxbridge and through extended family. And we were asked to sell diamond earrings, 5 carats each, big. And I had never sold a stone this large, especially for earrings, and also a very large pendant. So that was probably one of the most exciting processes because I didn't know how to deliver it. I didn't know how to sell it. I didn't know how to do anything. And it went in about 2 days and it went for like $70,000. And it was pretty exciting because I hadn't been involved with that. So that was one of the most interesting. And knowing the history about it was very fascinating too, because the family told me how it got to be. And I told the new person how it got to be. And there was no made up story. It was directly from the family. And so it was very cool. And I know where, I'm not sure about the earrings, but I do know where the pendant is to this day.
But isn't that neat? Now you've got the person who's wearing it and they know the history behind it. So there's even an emotional attachment. They might not even know the person that they're wearing, but now they got that story.
Yeah.
How many people are getting tattoos and they just want to tell the story of their tattoo? And so it becomes a personal
it is a similar sort of thing. Very, very personal. And there's some families that don't want to share the story for whatever reasons. And some stories we don't know. But when we know it, it certainly makes it nicer. There's a beautiful diamond bracelet that I can't believe is still here. It's
Is
not.
it that little small tennis one that has a sort of a neat zigzag?
No.
Oh.
No. That's not the.
I did notice that one though.
That Scott was planning to get you for Christmas. We do not want to ruin any surprises. But
isn't that the way though? When I walk in the store, it's like, all right, it's Jennifer's birthday. How much is it going to cost me?
well, that's sometimes good. But there is a beautiful bracelet there, an 18 karat. And I thought when I heard the story, I thought it was going to walk out the door. Well, we've had it for probably the better part of a year now. And it's one of my favorite pieces, but it's not for everybody. And I really love it because I know how it's manufactured and it's done exceptionally well. And plus I looked it up and this person, it's signed. So that's always nice when a piece is signed because it gives us a way to track it back to a period and we get to know about the craftsman that made it. And so this particular one is. So we tracked it all the way back and these pieces sell for $10,000 to $12,000 to $15,000. Well, it's never going to get that in vintage. So I think we have it for $3,000 or $4,000 and it's beautiful and it hasn't gone. One of my favorite.
With the stories must also come the psychiatry of being a jewelry seller.
Yeah.
Everything from somebody who's nervous to coming in and wanting to purchase something on the sly for their hopefully to be fiance, or perhaps it's for a child or a spouse or a
girlfriend
or a please forgive me for this error, those types of things. So what kind of psychiatry stories have you got where you've had to walk somebody through a process?
Well, there's many different types of those. I will tell you a number of years ago in vintage, somebody buy his ex-wife's engagement ring to give to his new wife.
Like he did it on purpose?
He had no clue.
Oh.
And to be honest with you, I had no clue. So the psychiatry that went behind that is we suggested to him that he change the mount only because we felt that it wasn't appropriate to give this sort of mount. So he chose a brand new mount, but the stone was still the same.
Okay. So now this is where you hit the thick-headed part of the podcast. Guy walks in, says, I want a ring, sees this ring, says, that's the one I want to give my new wife.
Yes.
He doesn't know it's the same ring that he just gave you.
He didn't give it to it. She brought it in.
Oh, okay.
And that's happened once. And that's certainly something that you need to be aware of. So we put in safety valves so that wouldn't happen again. Because sometimes, as you said, Scott, you're not the only one that's thick out there. As men, we tend to forget. And if I asked you, what color are your wife's rings? And you would go,
they're mine diamonds.
Yeah. But I mean, you might not know whether they were yellow or whether they were white. And there's some people that I have bet on over the years and they tell me that, I think it's white. I'm pretty much sure it is. Well, sure enough, it's yellow. The way we know is we put records on it and we have it on our computer systems and we know and we go, this is yellow. So probably you shouldn't go down the white route if you've got yellow already. But there's also preconceptions out there that, when a lady comes in and says, well, I can't wear an opal because it's bad luck, because my birthday's not in October. Well, we from our side know that was started from a Sir Walter Scott novel in 1912. He coined it out of, and I believe it was The Great Gatsby, that it was bad luck to wear opals if it wasn't in your birthstone. And so that is a old wives' tale that is stuck through generations, now over 130, 120 years old, and it's still followed by many people. Opal is a softer stone, but is a beautiful stone. And if worn correctly, can last for years. We've also had people literally break them the first week they've had them.
Oh, wow.
And that's always a problem because
were those people born in October?
I I can't answer that. But they may have been, they may not. But October birthstones, for that reason alone, are our third highest birthstone month, because those that have it will want it for October. So it pushes up the sales because they won't look at other things. Probably opal would be number 3. Emerald would be a distant number 4 as popularity goes.
A common question we get at Okamikai Martial Arts and Fitness is, what age can my child start karate?
And the answer is that we have children as young as 3 years old training with us. Austin is one of our amazing students, and he told us some of his favorite things about our program.
Do lots of stuff like karate, like weight falls, kicks, and blocks, and punches. I can do anything.
Austin can do anything, and we are excited to help bring out his potential and your child's too.
We use martial arts as a tool to help your child build confidence, focus, self-discipline, and respect for others.
Contact us at Okamikai Martial Arts and Fitness to get your child started today.
Mom, wake up, it's karate day!
When you began in the business, you were referencing charm bracelets as being part of your training, that you had to learn how to solder them to the bracelet. Fast forward all these years now, we have Pandora. Has Pandora surprised you at not only the popularity, but now the longevity?
Yes, and they have moved into a different mode in their product development. But when Pandora came out, it was new to a new generation, because a lot of people stopped wearing the old-fashioned charm bracelets and wore these beautiful bracelets. And we were the 7th store in Canada to get Pandora. I remember it very well because I never thought that it would go. And it was strong. It has been very strong for a number of years. It's waning a bit now, but they're redeveloping their process. They're trying to find that new place where they fit into the marketplace. I think they've gone back to a little bit of their grassroots, where it's family-driven jewelry, mom, dad, birthstones, initials, pets. Pets are huge. Dogs are huge for Pandora bracelets. Like, unbelievable. We would sell 20 dogs, different types of dogs, to one charm of Pandora. Other charms.
And with dogs in mind, I have to tell you, I love the fact that you have the dogs in the store.
Well, our very first one was Bandit, and Bandit was not in very much, but he was around when we first started the business. And then we got Chippy. He lived for 17 years. And even to this day, I can get very emotional about that dog, because he came to work with me every single day. And even the day that we got robbed, he started to chase them, and I had to call him back.
Okay.
Because
stop the clocks right there. Let's tell that story. The day you got robbed and Chippy chased them.
Well, not for very long, I must admit, but we were robbed by 2 people dressed as police officers. They knocked on the door in the morning that's when we opened it at 9 o'clock. About maybe 8:45. We were supposed to be here at 8:30. And so I had 2 staff in the store, and they knocked on the door and they said, "We want to talk to you about a robbery that happened last night." And so the girl opened. Police officer, she'd do that. And she says, "What's this about a robbery? I hadn't heard." And then they unfortunately proceeded to try to rob the place. I was dropping my kids off at school, so it was coming a little bit later. And Chippy and I were coming down the side of the building while they were running out with duffel bags. And we knew that we'd been hit, and Chippy started to chase them. And I had to call him back because one of the assailants said, shoot him. And I never, Chippy and I dodged behind a car. And then we went in, and it was a very, very, very different day, a very surreal day after that.
Were they caught?
To my knowledge, they never really have been caught. The insurance company took a year and a day, but they did pay out.
A year and a day.
A year and a day. And they asked us to prepare the paperwork, and we had to do it 3 times. First, they wanted to know the paperwork to back up the product that we had lost. And then they wanted it alphabetized. And then they wanted it numerically arranged in dollar values with the pieces and pictures. Well, we couldn't necessarily provide the pictures because we didn't have the technology at the time, but that's what they wanted. And so basically they were trying to tire us out.
Yeah.
And they did a good job, because I started working on it in my basement, and then I had to hire somebody who was far more organized and had a little more of a intense ability to source and find things. And she found it. I'm very pleased to say she probably found all but one or two pieces. And they did pay, but it took us a year and a day for them to come up with it. And there was,
how sick is that? Though? A year and a day.
But the good side of that story, to the credit of the jewelry industry, every one of my suppliers within 2 weeks shipped me all the product that was missing and said, take as long as you want to pay for it.
Wow.
So that's the nice side of that story. I remember I lost a lot of watches, and within 4 days, I had the new watches in, every single one of them. And it caused us to retake a look at security cameras and the whole 9 yards. So out of a very awkward time period, something positive did come out of it, because we were able to improve the customer take-in procedure with cameras and pictures and also more cameras here and the whole 9 yards.
Who's your biggest competition?
I'm going to say nowadays, the internet, and the perception that people have that brick and mortar stores can't compete with the internet, because we can compete hands down. And I would like to suggest, not just me, but any independent retailer, I would say give them a chance, because they will deliver the service side and the background that the big boxes and the internet can't deliver. I love it when I work with these young couples and they're so much in love, and he wants something so special for her. He hasn't a clue most of the time what he's buying. But when we can explain it to him and show him and give him that knowledge, hopefully it makes that purchase that much better and much more meaningful, rather than receiving a box in the mail and say, oh, guess what? I got my ring. Oh, it doesn't fit. Okay, well, now what do I do? Oh, the stone is loose. Oh, it's not the right color. Or any of these things. Well, I guess I didn't save any money because I've had to do this, this, and this with it. Independents, I like to say, are still the backbone of our industry, because we live and breathe the work every day. And we can size it, or we can set it, or we can fix it, or we can repair it. We can do anything for you right here.
We had Shelley Macbeth, and she said that people were buying off the internet. Now they have a site. You can go to Blue Heron and you can buy off their website. But you're going to get the same book from Amazon that you would from Blue Heron. But there's that personal experience they have by going into the store. Something like this, I wouldn't even know where to begin trying to buy jewelry online.
And that's very true for most people. And they do their research, but they do their research online. It's like looking at one book and trying to make it a one-stop. So a lot of times they feel they know what they're looking for, and they come in and they say, I want this, 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 and this. Well, this, and this, and this doesn't necessarily equal an end product. So you have to retrain them and think and what you're asking for. And they maybe misunderstood it through the internet. And the internet is a wonderful tool, but I think it, like anything, it has its uses. And we use it here, as is every business uses it to a degree, but we know the limitations of that.
Guy in his 20s wants to go and get married, and he's got maybe a couple of weeks of experience on the internet trying to shop for jewelry, and then he comes in here and there's 38 years. I think there's a bit of a difference in education.
Well, hopefully that's true, but now you can't really say that he's got a couple, because they start when they're 5 years old and they get these phones and they turn around and they're pretty savvy, these young kids, and they know how to search. They know how to take pictures. Most of the young men today, the girl has sent him her choices either on Pinterest or any of these. So he already has a portion of the puzzle solved.
You had that with me. You knew that I wanted a flat stone because I didn't want it to flip around when I play piano. And that's all I said about that.
But that was exactly that. That's all you said. I still walked in here and Laura and I still looked at it.
Well, Laura is particularly good at this because it's something she enjoys. We all enjoy it because it gives us a real feeling afterwards. As I've told my son, Ryan, it's not about the money. It's about making that special piece, the piece that hopefully they'll have forever, makes that to that person. It means something to them. And we're just a small part of that. And it's wonderful.
We're going to do a portion called Rapid Fire.
Okay.
So you can just, off the top of your head, give us the answers that you want, or you can take more time. There's no time limit or minimum. I already know this, though, but dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Winter or summer?
Summer.
What's your favorite restaurant in town?
Oh, that's a tricky one. I like all of them for different reasons.
Okay, where's your favorite burger?
B&L has always been a real haunt of mine for a burger. And also that new Wing Riders, they do a great burger. So I would have to say the two of those places would be pretty much up there.
What's the most common time of year for engagements?
That has changed. It used to be the springtime. So that's changed, generally coinciding with graduation from university or college in that time period. But now it's all year around. When you have the feeling or want to get the move, you do it when you feel you're ready.
I'm surprised. I thought you for sure would have said Christmas.
You know, Christmas is busy, but we have an opinion on Christmas that you don't necessarily give your engagement ring out on Christmas because it's not fair, you know, to the rest of the family members that have worked so hard to give you, let's say, a beautiful shirt or whatever present they come up with, and you get a ring. Well, everything else is, well, I'm gone. I don't necessarily suggest they rethink it. I just ask them or tell them. And most of them appreciate knowing the story. I said, do it Christmas Eve, because do it New Year's Eve, do it Christmas Day at 5:00 or something after the festivities are over, but respect the process and you can still have it and it'll still be wonderful and it'll still be every bit as meaningful. But the number one, once you give a girl her engagement ring, the number one thing the girl likes to do is call her mom. Now, the guy wants to talk to his buddy. And the number two thing the girl does is talk to her friends. And she talks to her best girlfriend. And that's when she says, would you like to be my best maid of honor or something like that? Because the friendship. And so the other girl is very excited for her. And it's a pretty special time.
With that plan, though, if you're waiting until after Christmas, then that poor guy still got to go buy a Christmas present anyway. When meanwhile, he was trying to probably roll this all into one.
Just remember, Scott, he's being told what to buy.
Right. Okay.
For Christmas. So he's might be armed, because today's young people are very well thought out and they're very organized. We find a lot of them don't wait to the last minute. Find a lot of people a lot smarter, because in my day that I was younger, we would tend to wait and we were last minuters. Oh, it's my anniversary, you know, and we didn't have the benefit of you having Jen tell you that there's a beautiful bracelet that you should be getting.
I like how he remembers it.
I know exactly where I am and who I'm talking to, Scott. You know, thanks.
As an anniversary gift, because anniversaries are a whole remembrance of the celebration, and you should not lose that, Scott.
How did I know this episode was going to cost us in the long run?
Well, we can only hope.
What's the most expensive piece you've ever sold? Was it that royal jewel?
No. We sold a $187,000 7-carat emerald cut
ring.
Wow. Local.
How long did that take to get rid of? So you had that in the store?
No, I did not. Okay. But I did have to pay for it before I sold it. Didn't have a great deal of money at the time that I was doing it. And I had to make a one-time agreement with the bank, and I had to prove that I had this, and I had to prove, and they advanced the money on a very expensive stone like that, because the supplier has to know that they're going to get paid for a $187,000 piece. So we had to make special arrangements. And initially the person took it and gave me the money, 100%. It was wonderful. Not all of it, but the last numbers didn't necessarily go through at the way that it was supposed to. And that was a very trying and difficult time for us. But we did get it and everything went smoothly. So it was just a little more stressful. at that time.
What are some of the mistakes made by your customers in terms of care or cleaning or storage?
Most customers might go in their hot tub with silver on. Most customers might go and shower with pearls on, either a strand of cultured pearls or earrings. They forget about their earrings. And so they wonder why the pearls are dull and they have been burnt. Or they put on perfume and they burn the pearls. That's a huge problem. Not so much with the younger people, but definitely with the older customers, because they douse themselves with perfume on it and the pearls rock and roll on that, and they burn the finish off pearls.
Can cultured pearls be cleaned?
They can be cleaned, but they cannot be brought back. Once the damage is done, that damage has ruined them. And we've had many people buy beautiful strands and perhaps wear them incorrectly because they want to wear it because they love them. But the elements, whether it be perfume or a hot tub, because that's pretty hard on them, the chlorine and the bromine are very hard on them. So they damage those.
What happens to the silver? You're saying people wear silver.
It turns black.
Yeah.
And the people would say it's not good enough quality. Well, generally, most of the silver today is in Canada. We have our Precious Metals Act is extremely good. We have one of the highest standards in the free world for the manufacturing and production of silver and gold. And you don't have that problem. But we always know when a person hopped in the hot tub because it's black. And they are not always the best way to do it. Now it can come off, but it comes back a little bit quicker. It never comes completely off.
When you die, are you taking your wedding ring with you to the grave?
Absolutely.
Yes?
Yes.
Oh, I find that surprising.
Well, I hope to die with this on, and it means a lot to me. I've had a couple of relationships, and it's very important to me to have that on. So I've had to cut many many engagement rings or family rings and wedding bands off people that have passed away, and over at the morgue or at funeral parlors or wherever. I've cut many, but you asked and answered, and I think I'd like mine on.
What's your favorite story about your staff?
The good times. I've had a lot of great times. Understanding their families, getting to meet their families, watching their children grow up, watching their relationships blossom. And so my favorite stories would be the happy stories. One of our staff members has a daughter that had a baby. Well, we lived that excitement all through that 9 months that she had it, the daughter had it, and then she went out to be with her. And it was a beautiful story. And so that would be probably one of my most exciting things.
After 38 years, do you have a really fond story of a customer? A really happy story?
I have great stories of customers. I'm very fortunate. I always like to tell this one. I one time had my first groomzilla. Okay, what a groomzilla is there's bridezillas and there's groomzillas. I'd never had a groomzilla. I got one time. It was a lot of fun. And we coined him. We actually called him Groomzilla, and he was quite proud of it. And he was probably one of the most special ones that I'll never forget. His bride was stunningly beautiful and down to earth and just the sweetest girl that you could ever imagine. Well, he was a little bit of a fussier pot, and he was a lot of fun to deal with because he was panicking, even though he well planned everything. And it was a lot of fun to deal with him. So a groomzilla was one of my best stories. And then another one that I really enjoyed was years ago, selling a ring to a guy that proposed at a Blue Jays game at Exhibition Stadium when they used to play there. And he rented the plane and it flew the plane, but will you marry? I forget the girl's name. Yeah. And said, will you marry me? Now, not only did I see it, I also saw it on the Toronto Sun because they had a picture of it.
Oh, cool.
And it was that was really exciting because he got the ring from us.
And she said yes.
And I sure hope she did. I don't remember.
Someone who's alive still today, who you'd really like to enjoy just some time to talk to, who would that be?
Someone that's alive. I would enjoy at the 24 Karat Club that I'm very proud to be a member of. We have jewelers that I grew up with and jewelers now that are a little older and a little younger. And any of those friends through that would be a real honor to have. And there's people like Jeff Morrison, who is a personal friend, and he's a great guy, or one of my sales reps that was here for years, Bill Gale. He is an exceptional human being, and I really enjoyed getting to know him and his family, and I still see him today.
And someone who's passed away who you'd like just a few more minutes to chat with.
That's real easy. That's my good friend Joe Vermolst. Passed away this February 2nd. He was a really good friend. Only knew him closely for 8 years. We got involved through the gym. And you can tell by my shape that it wasn't very successful at the gym, but
the relationship was great.
But he and the relationship my wife had with Joe and his wife, Heather, was pretty special to us. And we mourn the loss of Joe practically every day. But through his vision, and I'm very involved with Windreach Farms, and Sally and Sandy Mitchell, who started Windreach Farms, the therapeutic riding for kids that had learning disabilities or challenges or whatever. Joe and I, for different reasons, got involved.
When you die and you go to heaven, because obviously you're going to go to heaven.
We sure won't.
Because all good jewelers go to heaven.
You hope so.
What do you hope God says to you?
Welcome home. Here's your mom and dad, and my brother, who I lost at a young age,
and Joe,
and Joe and Chippy, for sure. There, because it's about those relationships. Through my whole life, it's been about a relationship. Relationships with customers, relationships with friends. And that's what's really valuable.
I think in closing, I'd like to say thank you for the relationship that you've built with the town, not only through the store and the jewelry and the customer service, but also through your displays out front, the clock and the Christmas displays and all of the beautiful gardens that you've created. The town is so much more beautiful because of you and what you've brought to it. So I think on behalf of Uxbridge, thank you, Scott.
Well, thank you. It is a labor of love. And we've certainly enjoyed trying to do it every year. And the next generation has told me when I move over that they hope to continue. And I really hope that we've instilled with the next generation to keep supporting the community and supporting Windreach Farms, because it's very important to me and also to those people that I work with, and all the great causes that we've dealt with over the years. It's been fantastic. And thank you for acknowledging that. And let's hope we go on for another few years.
Thank you for spending the time with us. I think we need to go shopping now.
I've got to ask one question before we go shopping. Thank you. In the morning, we used to live really close to each other, a few blocks away.
Yeah.
And so I walk the dog and I see you walking your dog. And I got tipped off that Jennifer had said that she showed you how to listen to podcasts. So I always thought when you had your AirPods in, that's what you were listening to. So now I have to ask, what are you listening to?
I listen to 60s music.
Do you?
I'm a big lover of the Beach Boys. And it's funny, if you ask me what I had for dinner last night, I might be able to remember, but I can tell you when in the year that some of the songs were released back 45, 50 years ago. And I really like it, or I remember the name of it when we're playing a trivia in here, because Laura and Lillian and the store is very sharp at this. And we sometimes say, who's that? Well, I can remember. But what I had for dinner, what I wore yesterday, it's left the building. So
now in the morning, you can listen to 60s music and hopefully you can listen to your interview.
Well, you know what? Podcasts are a new world for me. And as I told you, I just started to listen to them. And I can walk for a long time if I'm listening to music. So, because it's very peaceful and I like it. So now I'm going to listen to the podcast.
There you go.
And Jen put it on my phone.
Perfect.
All right, let's talk businesses in a small town. So March 2020, the whole world falls apart. in April 2020, I realized that I got to get you a birthday present for May 2020. So I am online looking for photos of Pandora bracelets and charms. And then I send a photo over to Laura by Facebook Messenger over at Rutledge Jewellers. And I say to Laura, I need this. Do you have anything like this? Her and I have a conversation back and forth. I end up picking up the phone. I give her my credit card number. She wraps it all up. I pick it up at the door. And I think you're only going to get that kind of service when you have a relationship with a retailer.
And why don't you think you could have done that online, let's say with Amazon?
I think I could have done it online. I think part of the reason why I didn't do it online was because you and I both realized that when the pandemic hit, small business was going to take a hit because, well, ours was taking a hit. And we were able to do online classes. We were able to figure things out. And all the small businesses were able to figure something out. Well, most of them did. And the ones that we respected the most were the ones that were able to pivot and figure out how they were going to survive through this and how they were going to, like John Rutledge shows up at our house and drops off shoes. Everybody sort of figured life out, and then the ones that did, again, kudos to you. And so I think there was that. I think there was that initial, hey, let's go support local. And maybe now that the pandemic is starting to ease off a little bit, restrictions are loosening up, I think a lot of us are starting to lose that. What do you think?
I think that Christmas is coming. And the opportunity for us not to lose it is pretty easy. We can walk down our main street and support all of our local retailers who have fantastic products and services. I'm not going to make any suggestions about sparkly diamond bracelets or anything like that for Christmas. No, I wouldn't toss that in the least. But hey, you know what? We could go to a movie. We could go over to the Roxy.
Yeah, and there's something else where you can stay local. And that's why we're going to go talk to Mark and Kathy Christoph next.
That was a fun interview. We look forward to sharing it with you. We were right inside the movie theater. Such a special gem in our town. Oh, see what I did there? The gem and the jewelers. And oh, that sparkly little bracelet. It might still be there.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Canadian Tire's in town. Just throwing that out there.
I can hear your best grunting. Yeah. Thank you, Scott and Laura, for all of the attention to detail that you provide for your customers. Thank you also for the gorgeous displays. It is so pretty outside your store right now and really makes our town beautiful. And we look forward to sharing our interview with you of Mark and Kathy.
Yeah. And honestly, the reason why we're able to do this podcast is because we have these kind of relationships. So, we can message Shelley Macbeth and say, yeah, would you like to be on the podcast? And then now we are able to expose that relationship to other people. And so, yeah, go to Blue Heron Books. You want a book? Go to Blue Heron Books. You want to go out for dinner? Go to Tin Restaurant. You want to go buy jewelry? There, now I just did it to myself. You want to go get jewelry? Go to Rutledge's.
I guess we're going to do some shopping now.
How about Passionate Cook? Let's go get cheese.
Mm-hmm.
How about Canadian Tire? Let's throw that back again. We got that relationship with Pat Higgins. Let's go to Canadian. Yeah, let's go to Canadian Tire. Yeah. Thanks very much for listening. We're going to Canadian Tire. This has been a Camsel Broadcasting production. Books, frying pans, jewelry. I think we're going to wait a bit before we interview anyone who owns a car dealership or who is a real estate agent.